Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Spirit Daughter podcast. I'm Jill Winterstein, aka Spirit Daughter. And on today's episode, we're going to deep dive into something I don't normally talk about, but use almost every day. And that's the cards of destiny, otherwise known as the Order of the Magi. So if you listened to my last episode with Kelly Gores, and if you haven't, I totally suggest going back and listening. We talked a lot about how we're both Jacks. And so what does that mean? And a couple of you have already asked some questions about what did that mean exactly? So today I'm going to get into what that means and what other cards mean as well. So the basics of cards of destiny are, like I said, Order of the Magi. And some say that this is the system that the tarot was built on. But you can think of it as playing cards. So determined by your birthday, you are a card. You have that card for your entire life. And that energy, much like your sun sign or any other placement in your natal chart, helps direct your life. And no, the cards don't have anything directly associated with your natal chart, but I do find there's some really interesting overlaps. And when we get into relationships and looking at card combinations, that's when it gets really interesting. But for now, just know that everybody is a card. And so you can think of it just like a deck of playing cards, like you would play gin with or rummy with. And so we have our aces, we have our twos, our number cards, our face cards, our jacks, like we were talking a lot about, queens, kings. And then we have our suits. So we have our hearts, we have our clubs, we have our diamonds, we have our spades. And so they all mean something. And so we have 52 cards, just like you have 52 playing cards. And we are each a card dependent on your birthday. And I'm going to link in the show notes one of my favorite sites by Sharon Jeffers that you can look up your card. It's a really simple site, really simple. You just put in, you don't even need to know your time of birth or even the year. You just need to know your birthday, and you just put that in and she'll tell you, her site will tell you her card. She also has a wonderful book called Cards of Destiny that you can also look all this information up on as well. So let's get into the cards. Let's talk first about the suits. So hearts, here we're talking about love, younger energy. So if you're a heart, you love a lot. You lean into love. You let love dictate your life. You think about love often. It's one of the main things in your life is love, is leading from your heart. There's also a youngness I've always found with this suit. And then we get into clubs. This is more the mental realm. So if you're a club, you live in your head a lot, you think a lot, you need people to help bring you into your body, to bring you into emotions, to get you out of your head, right? You like to live in that mental world and that mental energy of the club. And then we think about diamonds. Diamonds are about value. They're about money. They're about resources. We can also think about it as fire, right? There's fire in some of these diamonds as well. And then we get into spades. Spades, wisdom. So this is if you're a spade, people probably think you're an old soul or you carry a piece of wisdom with you. And we can think about here, as far as the elements, water. And then if we go back to clubs, air. And then if we go into hearts, I don't really think of them directly as earth, but there's a bit of earth in there in that we're grounded in the heart. And so those are the suits. And then we get into the actual numbers, the face cards. And so you can think of the energy moving this way. It evolves through the deck. So with aces, this is pointed energy. It's like an arrow shooting forward. It's very directive. And so if you pair an ace with a heart, you're very directive with the center of your heart, with your love. You speak your heart. You speak your truth freely, right? Aces, sharpshooters. Ace of clubs, right? Thinking a lot with the mind, reaching out with the mind. lawyers, right? Think of that kind of energy, right? Speaking their mind, speaking their truth, being very directive. So that's an ace. And I'm just going to pair these first couple with the suits so you can see how they work together. Ace of diamonds, right? Being very directive about values, about money, having a single focus. Again, that ace is very single focus. The energy is moving in one direction. And then the ace of spades, this is wisdom, right? So focus, again, that ace quality paired with wisdom. So focusing on learning information. They often call this the card of the magician, right? So focused on integrating that wisdom and putting that out into the world in a very focused way. And then the energy splits. That's where we get the two. So aces are moving forward in one direction, like that arrow. The energy splits into two. This is where we get that two, that communication. So two of hearts, partnership. Two of clubs. You can think of these people like to talk a lot, right? They dialogue a lot. They dialogue with others a lot. They figure things out in partnership in the mind, in the mental realm, right? Two of diamonds, right? This is often called the wheeler dealer card because we pair the two with values, with money, and then you can see how that becomes a partnership in values. And then the two of spades is wisdom through partnership. Wisdom often gained through partnership. Now the energy then splits again into threes. Threes are creative. So this is the sign of creativity, multiple streams coming in. If we're dealing with the heart, right, your creative expressions of the heart, right? Maybe you paint, maybe you write poetry. There's creative expressions from your heart, right? When we look at it, the three of clubs, right? Many ideas are coming in, a lot of creative ideas. That mental realm has a lot of information, a lot of avenues to explore, right? Three of diamonds, multiple streams of income. That's what we think of when we see the three of diamonds, right? A three of spades, right? This is wisdom, right? From different avenues, intuition, understanding the power of your creative intuition, right? Bridging those things together. The creativity and the wisdom. And then the energy comes together, right? So we had the ace flying forward, splits into two. The twos talk to each other, partnership. The threes go out even more. And then it all comes back together for the four, right? The four is the foundation, right? So four cards are very solid. They're very grounded. They're very firm. They're often the builders of our world. Four of hearts, we often think about this as the marriage or family card because you're building a family from something. It's the foundation. Four of clubs, this is the foundation of the mental realm. This is where ideas are formed. This is where they're built. This is where they actually become tangible, not just an idea in your head, but you build them in the world. Right, four of diamonds, right? This is a lot of building wealth, building money, building foundations of abundance. That's going to be your life path if you're a four of diamonds. And then four of spades, they often work a lot in that pursuit of wisdom. So building upon the wisdom that they have, building systems, structures upon wisdom, upon intuition. And then the energy, so it's four, like a square, nice and firm, and then it splits for the five. And so fives are the cards of change. If you're a five, you like a lot of change, you embrace change. And so you can apply this to each of the suits. And so the energy, it's not that it scatters, but it goes in different directions. And so if you're a five, you're okay with change, you may create change, you thrive in change. And then the energy comes back together for six. And so six becomes another foundation. It's like a four. It's sturdy, right? We think of like four, like a square. It's sturdy. We think of six, right? When we see a six-pointed star, for instance, it's sturdy. There's a sturdiness to it. Six is about responsibility, about commitments, right? So you compare those with the suits, right? Are you committed to your heart, to the mental realm, to money, to values, to wisdom, right? There's a commitment in sixes. There's also a psychic ability across the suits if you're a six. You bring in this psychic worldly that you can build a foundation and actually make concrete to others. And then we get into sevens. And so sixes are together, right? That energy, very firm. Sevens split apart again. And so you can see the pattern here of coming together, splitting apart, coming together, splitting apart. And so with sevens, we get into the spiritual realm. And so when you pair those with the suits, it becomes spiritual. The overtone is spirituality. It becomes spiritual about the heart, spiritual about money, values. I will say the Seven of Diamonds is the millionaire's card. I think we referenced that on Kelly's episode as well, because you become spiritual about abundance. It takes a different turn. It goes internal, and then you can focus on it more deeply, right? The Seven of Spades is one of the wisest cards in the deck because all that wisdom spins inward. They can also become the hermit as well. But seven is that spirituality. The energy turns inward. And then it goes out again, forms another foundation, which is the eight, right? A very firm, we're talking about two squares, an octagon, right? 8 points. This is a very solid foundation. And so 8 becomes power, right? So this is a power number. If you're an 8, you have a lot of power within you. You might be on a journey this lifetime to own your power, to understand your power. Is it the power of the heart? Is it the power of the mind? Is it the power of your values? Is it the power of your wisdom? Right? Leaning into that 8 and embodying that 8. And then comes the 9. And the 9, I like to think of the Shiva card, which Shiva is the Hindu deity that like burns everything down so that we can rebuild it again. And so the 9 destroys. The 9 takes everything that we've built, all the foundations, and crumbles it to the ground so we can rebuild better. And so you can apply that to the suits. And I will say a lot of 9 of hearts I found, have loves in their life, whether it be a project or a person, and then they reinvent that love. They reinvent that project. They find a new project, a new passion, a new love. 9 of clubs are always finding flaws and problems in the systems, and then they crumble them down with their mind and rebuild again, right? 9 of diamonds often go through cycles of abundance, of finances, where they have a lot, it falls down, it crumbles. And then the 9 of spades, now we're dealing with wisdom, where they're learning, you're intuiting things, and then you're reinventing and intuiting more and reinventing. So there's this element, this energy of reinvention with a 9. And then 10, we take it out to the collective. 10 is a universal card. So when you apply it to the suits, it's taking that energy of the heart, of the club, of the diamond, and it's projecting it out to the world, out to the collective. So really doing something on a worldly, global stage with the 10, a universal stage. Think of like universal is the theme with the 10. And then we get to the jacks, which is what we talked about and laughed a lot about with Kelly. So I'm a jack, and Kelly is a jack as well. And jacks, now when we get into the face cards, right, we're into royalty. So obviously king and queen, this is royalty. And it's not that it's the energy of royalty or anything like that. It's just that, we're getting into that vibration. And so with jacks comes all of that authority, all of that royalty, all of that nobility without the responsibility. And so jacks often have many choices in their lives. They can rise to be a queen or a king. They can kind of go to the lower side of the jack, which often looks like, goofing around, maybe forming a gambling addiction, maybe just blowing everything off and sitting in the woods because they can, doing whatever they want, but not really doing anything particularly useful. Or they can take kind of a middle path where they reach for enlightenment, and you can think of like Buddha in this realm, right? Where he was reaching for enlightenment. He was a prince. He could have rose to be a king. He could have ran off to the woods and said, screw it all. Or he could have taken this middle way, which is to reach for a higher level, a higher meaning of anything. So if you're a jack, you have that choice in your life. Now, if you're a queen, queens rule through service. And so you have this inherent responsibility to do something that serves others. And that's where you're going to ultimately find your power, find your voice, is in serving others. Is it going to be through the heart? Is it going to be through the mental realm? Is it going to be through values? Is it going to be through wisdom? That's going to depend on the suit. And then we get to the king, right? Final cards of the deck. And so the king rules through power. And so kings often have mastered their suit. They understand the power of the heart. They understand the power of the mind. They understand the power of values and finance. They understand the power of wisdom, and often are on this journey to learn how to wield that power, how to use that power for others, how to rule and lead with vulnerability and with that power, so that they don't over dominate, so they don't over control the situation, but they show up where they're needed and help really be a leader that those around them need. And so that is just a glimpse into the cards, but you can kind of see how the energy moves from ace, right? That one pointed, directive, to the king, which is that mastery card, and all through the four suits. And so you are one of those cards. I'd love to know what card you are. And so when you do find out, please send it into us in Instagram, and you can tag us and let us know your card. And like I said, you can look it up. I'll link the website in the show notes on Sharon Jeffers' website. It's a beautiful website, so easy to navigate. And she has an amazing book on this. And there's also a book on relationships. I'm not going to get into it in this episode, but maybe in a future episode, you make another card with somebody else. So when you put your card with somebody else's card, it makes an entirely new card. And that card governs the relationship. And I think that's one of the really cool things about this system is you actually make a card with somebody else. And if you have a kid, they have a card, and then your family card changes. So you put all three cards together, that's your family card, and that makes a card. So it's a very, very cool system. It's one I use all the time. I've used it for years. I learned it, I don't even know, 15 years ago now. I use it in my daily life because every day is a card. And so just like the moon is in a sign every day is governed by the energy of one of those cards. And obviously any kids born on that day become that card. And so it's a really cool system to just learn about another lens. I'm always looking for different lenses to help us understand our humanness, our consciousness, who we are, what we're doing. So I love to look at this system as just another lens to look at ourselves through. So head over to Sharon's site and look up your own card and let us know. And thanks for listening today and opening your mind to this different system, but really fun system that I love to use. And like I said, I'd love to know your card. So you can head over to our Instagram at Spirit Daughter. Let us know your card today. And I will talk to you soon.